Good evening and welcome to this unique and innovative virtual debate for the 8th District Congressional seat of Virginia. My name is Ashley Wilson from the Black Alumni Alliance National Association, and I am joined by Dr. Ahmed Bouzid from the True Representation Movement. We will be moderating tonight's event. Tonight we have two human candidates with us, David Kennedy, independent, and Bentley Hensel, also independent. Additionally, in a first of its kind format, we are joined by an artificial intelligence that will be simulating responses of Congressman Don Beyer, the incumbent who has declined to participate in person. The AI has been designed to accurately and faithfully represent Congressman Don Beyer's positions and policies based on publicly available information, voting record, and prior statements. We are doing this to ensure that voters can hear all perspectives, even in the absence of one candidate. The answers provided by the AI have not been shared with or vetted by the Don Beyer for Congress campaign. They have also not been shared with or vetted by the other participating candidates. Additionally, no one outside of the two moderators, myself and Dr. Ahmed Bouzid, have had access to the questions ahead of this debate. We would like to note that we did extend an invitation to the Republican candidate, Mr. Jerry Torres, but he declined to appear. We were planning to create an AI to represent him, but unfortunately, we could not gather enough documents and statements to create an AI that would adequately do justice to his stands. We encourage the viewers to visit Mr. Jerry Torres' website to learn more about his stand. His website is www.torresuscongress.com. That's www.torresuscongress.com. Moving on. Except for the opening and closing statements, for which the candidates will each have 1 minute, including the AI, the participants will have 2 minutes to respond to each of the 7 questions we are about to ask. Our goal today is to foster a fair and respectful debate on the critical issues facing our country. So let's begin with our opening statements. To the challengers, why are you running and why should someone take a risk of voting for you rather than voting for the incumbent? You have 1 minute. And to the incumbent, why are you seeking office for a 6th term, and why should someone vote you back in rather than give someone new and fresh a chance to represent this district? Starting with Kennedy, next Bentley, and lastly DonBot.
Great. Thank you, Dash. Thank you, Ahmed, for organizing this activity. My name's Dave Kennedy, and I'm running for the U.S. Congress as an independent, grassroots, moderate-leaning candidate. My website shares lots of my personal background, so I encourage you all to check me out at davekennedy2024.com. Since I started my campaign in January, I've literally met 10,000 folks, 10,000 voters in the district, maybe as many as 20,000. Knocking on doors, visiting coffee shops, neighborhood festivals and fairs, farmers markets, talking to at least 100 small business owners. And out of the 9 events that I've been invited to, forums such as this, Representative Beyer has shown up twice. If you count today, I guess it's 3 times. The honor and responsibility to represent you in the U.S. Congress should not be a coronation of a king. A coronation is not a we the people democracy. And that's what our founders intended, was we the people. So with 19 days until Election Day, I am calling on Don, Representative Beyer, to announce his retirement immediately. And I'm asking you, the people, to elect me to represent you in the United States House of Representatives. Thank you.
Bentley.
Thank you and good evening. First off, I want to thank True Representation Movement and the Black Alumni Alliance for hosting this debate. I'm Bentley Hensel, and I'm running for Congress because our government isn't keeping pace with the challenges of today or the needs of tomorrow. I've spent my career modernizing outdated systems, and I know we can build a government that works smarter, faster, and better for everyone. Whether it's accessing Social Security, filing taxes, or responding to disasters, we deserve a system that works and serves for the people, not the bureaucracy. I know I'm not a typical candidate, but that's exactly the point. Real change doesn't come from doing things the same way with the same people. I bring a fresh perspective, technical expertise, and drive to cut through the red tape. I've worked at the intersection of human beings, public service, and technology for my entire career, and I've seen firsthand the gaps that we have and believe I have the skills to close them. I'm the only candidate, a federal candidate ever in the history of this country who has ever instantly disclosed every single donation to my campaign in real time, because I believe trust starts with honesty and transparency. It's a risk. It's had to vote for myself or Mr. Kennedy, try something new, and go against the status quo. But if you want real solutions on climate, transparency, data privacy, or making the government not awful, I'd like for you to check me out. And I'm ready to lead with action and not just words. And I hope you'll, excited to talk tonight and hope you'll listen to what we have to say. I look forward to your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Bentley. DonBot.
Thank you for this opportunity and for this forum. I've been proud to serve the people of the 8th District of Virginia for over a decade now, and during that time, I've learned a lot about what we need to do to support our families, our businesses, and our local communities. We need a leader who has a deep understanding of the issues facing our district, who has a track record of effective leadership, and who has the perseverance to get things done. I've spent 25 years in public service, from my time as Lieutenant Governor of Virginia to my current role in Congress. So, when people ask why I'm seeking office for the 6th time, my answer is simple. I believe that I can make a real difference in the lives of the people of the Virginia's 8th District, and I'm not done yet. So, I ask for your vote, and I promise to keep working tirelessly on behalf of the people of the 8th District. We can do this if we stand together, and I'm honored to be your champion.
Great. Okay. So are you there, Dash? Okay, wonderful. All right. So the first question will go first to DonBot, then Bentley, then Kennedy. Okay. Here goes the question. If a bill were introduced tomorrow that proposed halting all aid and all weapon shipments to Israel until a Palestinian state with internationally recognized borders is established, including recognition by the United States, how would you vote? DonBot.
To maintain a strong alliance with Israel, while also working towards a just and lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Establishing a Palestinian state is a crucial step towards that goal, but withholding aid and weapon shipments could harm innocent civilians and undermine our efforts towards peace. As a member of Congress, I would focus on bipartisan efforts to promote a two-state solution, provide humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people, and work towards a comprehensive peace agreement that addresses the legitimate concerns of both Israelis and Palestinians. Recognizing the historical and cultural ties between U.S. and Israel, I would also work to strengthen our relationship and promote a more direct and more meaningful dialogue with the Israeli government and the international community.
Bentley?
So thank you. If that bill came up, I would have to see it first, but I would vote for it. First off, what's happening in that region of the world is a hot mess, and we've let it go on for far too many decades. What I would call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and return, like the bill says, to the internationally recognized borders. And if Israel decides that they do not want to return those borders, then any and all foreign aid ceases to Israel. But secondly, now that you can't just stop there, which I feel many politicians have, first off, we actually need a lasting peace. We need to solve this major issue. So after everyone's gone back to their homeland, their internationally recognized borders, we will mandate that both sides work towards, in good faith, towards a peace agreement. And primarily Israel with their red lines, but same with Palestine, if either side decides not to negotiate in good faith or go against it, then any and all economic activity with those countries, because Palestine is a country, should be halted and stopped. If Israel decides not to negotiate in good faith, then we treat them like North Korea. We treat them like Russia. We treat them like Cuba, because this has been going on for decades, and it's time to get real and have actual solutions and move on as a humanity from this issue.
Thank you, Bentley. Dave, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Ahmed. Well, I support a two-state solution. Absolutely. I think the Palestinian people have been oppressed since 1947. However, this solution you're suggesting, Ahmed, no aid until a two-state solution, I think my inclination is not to support that type of legislation. I've had a chance to talk to lots of people about this, and I always seek out both Palestinians and Israelis. So I had one potential constituent write me, and she was very much coming from unwavering support for Israel. And I responded, we went back and forth on email, and my final note to her was, if I'm elected, one of my goals would be to go to Israel and, if possible, go into Gaza and meet the people. I'm a man of deep faith, and I'm grounded in my Judeo-Christian heritage. I think meeting the people of Israel would inspire me, and I know the people of Gaza would do the same. There are evil people in this world that want to destroy Israel. I believe that, but I also know everyday Palestinians are just looking for the same thing we all are looking for: peace and an ability to live in a healthy and prosperous community.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dash.
All right, let's get to the next question. 11 million children in the United States today live in a state of food insecurity and go hungry every night. It costs about $24 billion a year to make sure that every one of those children is given 3 meals a day, every day of the year. Approximately 33,000 veterans are currently experiencing homelessness, and on average, around 6,000 veterans die by suicide each year. Veterans are about 2.3 times more likely to die by suicide than non-veterans in the general population. To house every single veteran through permanent supportive housing would cost between $495 million to $825 million a year. In other words, less than $1 billion. Since just this year alone, roughly $24 billion in military aid has been authorized for the Ukraine and approximately $17.9 billion for Israel. The total is around $42 billion. What would you say to someone that says $42 billion could be spent on feeding American children and taking care of our veterans instead? We'll start with Bentley.
Thank you, Dash. That's a great question. We have some we have some horrific problems and challenges in this country. And it is incredibly frustrating when we see just all of the resources going to other areas. And first, I'd say that this is a tactic normally used when our leaders decide not to make change and not to solve a problem. $24 billion, while a very significant amount of money in the grand scheme of the United States government, is a drop in the bucket. First off, with Ukraine, the United States of America is getting the best deal of the century right there with what is happening with the Russians. And but I think the core of this question goes deeper: is the fact that the government is incredibly wasteful. $24 billion is what the US government spends on a very short amount of time with Amazon Web Services on things they don't use. I firmly believe that if we had an efficient government that actually served the people, did not duplicate resources, and actually was built with the best practices of 10 years ago, we could easily cut government spending by 30% and increase government services. It's not a limited pie of resources. The pie is just so convoluted and so complicated right now that people think it's an us or them thing, but everyone can win. The United States of America is massive and has a tremendous amount of resources. There's no reason we can't do everything and plus more. So I don't see it as necessarily a Ukraine versus hunger, Ukraine versus vets, Ukraine versus free mammograms. Like, it's not that question, in my opinion. It's the fact that when we audited the DoD, they found helicopters or other, the government just spends money and there's no recourse for it because we don't know. And I think we first need to get our technology in hand so that we can make this thing efficient, so that we can easily solve hunger. We can easily solve vets, because money won't be an issue when we're not just blowing it on things that we don't even know about.
Thank you, Bentley. Next up, Dave.
Thanks, Dash. Couple things right off the bat. I totally support restoring the child care tax credit that was authorized during COVID, which expanded the credit from $2,000 per child to $3,600 per child. I also know that the Farm Bill, which is the main engine to fund the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, has been running on fumes the last 2 years and running on extensions. The Farm Bill is supposed to be reauthorized every 5 years. It was last reauthorized in 2018. So the Farm Bill needs to be addressed as soon as the Congress returns. I'm curious to hear what Don has to say on this. I know, and I'm just going to thank him because you brought this up, Dash. Veteran suicide is a problem, and I know Don has been a strong advocate for programs around suicide prevention. I think that's been part of his legacy and a crowning accomplishment. I still call on him to retire, and I think he has lots to share. And actually, I would invite him to be part of my team when I am elected to represent District 8.
Thank you, Dave. And DonBot.
As a father and a member of Congress, I am deeply disturbed by the stark contrast between the magnitude of our spending on foreign aid and our response to pressing domestic issues. The facts you've shared are a stark reminder of the moral imperative we have. We're spending for Ukraine and Israel could be used to address the to our country. And as you rightly note, it could provide every child in America with 3 meals a day, every day of the year. It could house every veteran in need and give them the support they deserve. However, I will not commit voting nay without working towards real solutions to these problems. Instead, I pledge to work towards reallocation of funds to address our veterans' homelessness, hunger, and mental health crises. We must put our own house in order before forgetting our own needs in favor of foreign aid. I will work tirelessly to make sure our money is being spent on our own people, our own children, and our own veterans. We owe it to ourselves, our veterans, and our children to do better.
Okay. On to question number 3. Okay. And we will start with Dave, and then DonBot, and then Bentley. So here's the question. The 8th Congressional District is heavily Democratic, so that any representative who wishes to reflect the majority stand of their constituency would need to align their votes with the stand of the Democrats. According to the Pew Research Center, 85% of Democrats support a total ban on assault weapons. Almost half Republicans, 42%, support such a ban. If a bill came in front of you calling for a total ban on assault weapons, would you vote yay or nay? And why would you vote that way? We start with Dave Kennedy.
Well, thanks, Ahmed. I'm going to just start by saying we use gun violence as the term, and it's really about just a violent we are a violent and at times uncaring society. I think it's always important to look at the root causes of why we have shootings, school shootings. And I'm going to actually say it's not just about the AR-15. It's again about just, I think at times, dysfunction in our society around how we look at issues like poverty, how we address issues like criminal justice reform, how we deal with the inequities that that's just are kind of rubber stamped in our society. I've done a lot of research on the AR-15. It's become the common hunting rifle. We don't have these old-fashioned rifles that we used to, when we think of hunters, we think of, the big old clunky rifle. Most hunters use the AR-15. Women protect themselves, or women who feel threatened. If they feel threatened and own a gun, they own an AR-15. I think there's a lot we can do around gun control, but I don't believe it's just about a ban on the common assault weapon called the AR-15. I think we need to do more around mental illness. We need to do more around gun safety. We need to do more around anti-bullying. And we need to work towards being a much more gentle and compassionate society. And until we do that, I think we're not going to have any solution around gun violence.
Okay, thank you. DonBot?
I would vote yay for a total ban on assault weapons. Assault weapons have been used in many mass shootings, leading to devastating loss of life. The purpose of these weapons is not for hunting or self-defense, but rather for military-style combat. Keeping our communities safe is a top priority, and banning these weapons is a common-sense step toward reducing gun violence and protecting our citizens. Voting for this ban aligns with my long-standing commitment to gun safety reforms. It's a decision that balances the will of the people I represent and the urgent need to address gun violence in our country.
Thank you. Bentley?
Awesome. Thank you. Great question and incredibly important. And it's, I think, one area that I'm very different. So first off, I'm the proud recipient of the Moms Demand Action Common Sense Gun Candidate. It's not their endorsement, but it's the same level of official endorsement that Mr. Beyer has, and it's the first step in Everytown USA's endorsement. What sets me apart is that my stances are completely different than the majority of our elected officials. I'm also in talks with gun rights organizations to get their endorsement. I believe that gun safety is a critical issue, but nothing has happened since Sandy Hook. Sadly, the most progress, which is pressing, this is the case, on this issue came when Donald Trump banned bump stocks. That's really the only meaningful gun legislation that's happened in recent history. That is not acceptable. So my plan is, first off, the assault weapon word means nothing technically. And what happens is whenever that word or phrase is used in common sense gun control, when that's used, you lose half the country because any gun owner will tell you that assault weapon means nothing. It's not a technical term. The ATF, unless that's changed recently, assault weapon is not an official definition of a firearm. And so when you go and say you want to control guns, but then you say the word assault weapon or common sense gun control, anyone that's had or an experience with firearm will just say they don't know what they're talking about. My plan is a little different. Again, I have been preliminarily endorsed by the subsidiary of Everytown USA, but also I'm a gun owner. I have a federal tax stamp. I've gone through the process to legally and ethically and in the proper manner and amount of paperwork to own a legal silencer. My plan is first, abstinence only as education doesn't work. So obviously not how to use a gun, but maybe, the Eddie Eagle cartoon of if you see a gun, stop, don't touch, leave the area and tell an adult. So kids know if you're at a friend's house, don't freaking touch it. Additionally, if you're a firearm owner, you are responsible for that firearm. And if you decide to not control it, you are responsible for anything that happens. If you give a firearm to a child and they go off and do horrific actions, you should be thrown underneath the prison. And just about every responsible gun owner will agree with me on that. So first, I think we need to be actionable. We need to actually start fixing the problem because Donald Trump leading on this issue in the past decade is incredibly unacceptable. And
Got 10
so
seconds.
while, yeah,
Go. 10 seconds.
Four.
You done? Are you done?
Yes. All right. Question 4. 66.5% of bankruptcies today in the United States are tied to medical issues, including medical bills and time out of work due to illness. This number is up from 62% in 2009. 85% of Democrats support Medicare for all and a public option for healthcare. If a bill came in front of you calling on extending Medicare to everyone, would you vote yay or nay? And why would you vote that way? Let's start with DonBot. You have 2 minutes.
Vote yay. And I would say that's because extending Medicare to everyone is the most compassionate, common sense solution to our nation's healthcare crisis. As a country, we're numbers 37 out of 37 on life expectancy among OECD countries, and our health costs are unsustainable, with 66.5% of bankruptcies tied to medical issues, including medical bills and time out of work due to illness. As you mentioned, an estimated 85% of Democrats support Medicare for all and a public is a carbon cap and dividend bill that would option carbon pollution credits and return the proceeds electronically every quarter to every American. I'm also a co-sponsor of Medicare for All, which would ensure universal health care coverage, and I believe that the time for incremental reforms is over. We need bold action to fix our healthcare system, and extending Medicare to everyone is a crucial step in the right direction. It would not only improve the health and well-being of our citizens, but also provide much-needed economic relief. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations to act now and make healthcare a fundamental right in our society.
Okay, just so that you know, guys, we will publish the answers if there was some glitching, so you get so that you get a DonBot and they get a chance to state their full statement. So next is Bentley.
so thank you. Again, healthcare is this question said, is a major driver of financial ruin in this country. And we've got to do something. If a bill for Medicare for all came up, I would absolutely vote in the affirmative. However, I have another potential alternative to that, and I think any improvement on this issue is much better than the disaster we currently have. But first, I think at its core, any insurance company, be it health, life, auto, or home, I have a ethical question of if insurance companies are able to be publicly traded. I don't understand how a company whose purpose it is to make someone whole after a disaster can be ethically traded on the public market and balance the needs of quote unquote shareholders with human beings. So, in addition to Medicare for All, I think first we should give health insurance companies 12 months to divest from the stock market and become public benefit corporations. Again, if the bill of Medicare for All came up, I would absolutely vote in the affirmative. But I think we also need to go farther, because when you can boost your end of quarter earnings based off when you deny human beings life-saving care, I think that's another huge problem that needs to be addressed in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Bentley. Dave?
Thanks, Dash. I have been very, one of my campaign issues has been reducing the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 55. I actually think that would start off as a more stable approach as far as the saving money on Obamacare, Medicare becoming more expensive, but possibly evening out. Now, with that said, if there was political will, and I think you shared a statistic that said that a majority of Americans support the Medicare for All option. If there was that political will, absolutely, I would be there. I think that's, I do believe healthcare is a right and not a privilege. And our system right now is not clear where it stands. I also, just as a follow add on to that, a woman's right to choose is a healthcare issue, and I absolutely support a woman's right to choose. And then my last comment on this topic would be, I've actually spent a career as an advocate for supporting federally sponsored research, health research at colleges and universities. And there are devastating diseases out there. I think all of us are going to experience a loved one or personally being in that situation. So I'm always going to support heavy investments in medical research. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, all right, we're on to question number 5. Okay, in 2009, 15 years ago, if my math is correct, the minimum wage was increased by 70 cents from $6.55 an hour to $7.25 an hour. $1 in 2009 is worth about 68 cents in 2024 dollars. So that the actual minimum wage went down, and it's more like $4.93 in 2009 dollars, right? Now, again, 87% of Democrats favor raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Nearly half of the Republicans, 46, actually more than half, nearly half, 46% support such a raise. If a bill came in front of you today, or if you were a congressman, or if you're a candidate, if you were a congressman, and it says raising federal rate to $15 an hour, would you say yay or nay? And why would you vote that way? And this goes to Bentley first.
So $15 an hour is what we started talking about in 2012. That's a joke. With all respect to the question, I would fight tooth and nail to keep a bill from raising it to $15 an hour going to the floor, because then that would use up all the public's goodwill and you wouldn't see this issue for another, 20 years? So first off, from an engineer's perspective, the problem with this is we call that hard coding variables. You should not have to pass a bill to raise the minimum wage. What about COLA and these other existing formulas that the US government already has, where you don't have to pass legislation really to adjust these hard amounts. Set up an independent board to do it. But I think, secondly, beyond the minimum wage, we have a wage, I don't want to use the word crisis, like uh, beyond that travesty in this country with how, okay, great, you make $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $40 an hour. It still wasn't keeping up with our CEO's pay. First off, and I think that is something we need to fix. You can't legislate, CEOs you could, but it wouldn't pass, only make X amount of dollars. But what we can do is follow the lead of the Sunlight Foundation and bring transparency into information. I think first, one of the best ways to raise wages across this country is name and shame. If you're a publicly traded company, I believe you should be required to disclose executive and leadership compensation, be it salary, bonus, stocks, or any benefit within 24 hours of it happening. The accounting departments already have this information. It already exists. They should just have to send it to the Department of Labor. These pieces of information should be hidden in SEC filings. Additionally, I believe that companies over 150 employees should be required yearly to disclose anonymized data with regards to age, gender, metro area, job title, years of experience, etc., with your base and total compensation, so that new hires, existing hires, and the general public can know what someone of a certain title with this many years of experience makes, and so that you don't have huge wage disparities in the workplace. Yes, we have laws protecting wage discussions in this country, but frankly, it's still a little bit taboo culturally. So let's just use an easy tech solution. ADP and TriNet and all these other companies, there are payroll companies. It would be very easy to send that data yearly to the Department of Labor. And I feel that when the media knocks on a company, it's like, wow, you're incredibly underpaying your people. Maybe that company whose PR department will force them to actually increase the wages, and you don't have to have huge amounts of laws to that. But if this bill came forward, I would be disgusted with myself because I had not fought harder to make it first more, and then, if even better than that, have a board that determines minimum wage. But also, again, I think one of the best ways to fix this issue is bring transparency to it and make it easy for the media to know who's underpaying, who's overpaying.
Okay, thank you. David?
Thanks, Ahmed. One of my leading platforms on the campaign has been dignity of a job. And dignity of a job means a living wage. I agree with Bentley, $15 an hour is kind of a joke. The minimum wage for this Northern Virginia and state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, is $12 an hour. So I've found a really interesting application online. It's called the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Calculator. And you're able to plug in your resident, your where you live, Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, Falls Church, and it gives you, for different scenarios, single parent, two parent families, 1 kid, 2 kids, 0 kids. It tells you what the cost of living is. So a living wage for, I'm going to use a single mom with 1 child, $122,000 is the magic number. That translates to a minimum, to a hourly wage of $48.98 an hour. So a $15 minimum wage is not going to help the single mom with 1 child in this area. The 2 biggest chunks of expense are childcare and housing. We've already talked about childcare. I don't have time to talk about affordable housing right now, but absolutely, when we talk about living wage, minimum wage, we also need to be talking about childcare and affordable housing.
Thank you, Dave. All right, DonBot, I believe.
To $15 per hour. It's appalling that the federal minimum wage has, since 2009, That's unacceptable, especially when so many low-wage workers are struggling to make ends meet. A raise to $15 per hour will not only give these workers a much-needed boost, but it will also help to address income inequality and ensure that everyone who works hard can earn a living wage. You are right to note that inflation has reduced its value since its implementation in 2009, making it worth less today. Moving forward with a plan to increase the minimum wage to $15 per hour will serve as significant improvement for so many who are payday to payday. As a co-sponsor of legislation to give feds a pay raise and my support for the Federal Employee Paid Leave Act, I believe that raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour is long overdue and a step in the right direction for working families.
Thank you, DonBot. We're going to move on to question 6. It would cost between $200 to $250 billion annually to provide healthcare coverage to all 73 million children in the United States under the age of 18. In the fiscal year of 2024, the total military budget was $874.24 billion. If a bill came to your desk that called for a reduction of the military budget by $250 billion and had that money be immediately allocated to cover the 73 million children, how would you vote? Yay or nay? And why would you vote that way? Again, the cost is between $200 to $250 billion.
This goes to
We'll
Dave.
start with Dave.
Okay. I think I would have to lean, I would probably lean, I've said a few times, we've got as a society lead with compassion, whether that's around issues of gun violence, bullying, child hunger, even the world poverty. If we're the society in the America, the great country we claim to be, we've got to lead with compassion. I do think, however, reallocating $250 million from the military budget to address child hunger might not be the right approach. We have a very important responsibility on the world stage as leaders of the free world. And part of that responsibility requires a healthy military. I think that kind of reduction would be too dramatic too quickly. We have a federal budget I disagree with Bentley on one thing. I don't think we can do everything because we only have finite resources. And I do think we're challenged to try to your question, Dash, support the most powerful military in the world and take care of child poverty. But we can do it. We just, and we probably need to address our tax system. And if our tax system is fair, and I think if we can bring more equity into our tax system, we actually would have opportunities probably to walk and chew gum at the same time.
All right, thank you, Dave. And let's hear from DonBot next.
I would vote nay on this bill. As a representative of the 8th District of Virginia, home to numerous military installations and a proud supporter of our nation's armed forces, I understand the importance of a strong national defense. Reducing the military budget by $250 billion would put our national security at risk and send a dangerous signal to our allies and adversaries alike. While I empathize with the need to address the concerns of families and children, I do not believe cutting $250 billion from our military budget is the most effective way to achieve that goal. That being said, I do believe we can and must do better to support our nation's children. I have long been a supporter of policies that increase access to affordable healthcare, higher education, and economic opportunities for all. I would instead propose a comprehensive approach to address the needs of our nation's children, including increasing funding for programs that support early childhood education, increasing the child tax credit, and investing in programs that support families and workers. In fact, I would be open to exploring alternative solutions that could provide better outcomes for our nation's children, while also maintaining a strong national defense. For example, we could explore ways to reorient some of the funding within the military budget to support our nation's children, or we could work to close corporate tax loopholes and tax evasion schemes to generate new revenue for programs that support our nation's children. Ultimately, as a representative, my responsibility is to serve the best interests of my constituents, while also being mindful of our nation's broader priorities. I believe that there are better, more targeted solutions to address the needs of our nation's children without sacrificing our national security. Therefore, I would vote nay on this bill and work to find alternative solutions that balance our nation's priorities.
Thank you. Let's move along to Bentley.
Thank you. This is similar to the other question earlier, and I agree with Mr. Beyer on some points, but not all. First off, the cutting U.S. military budget by $250 billion in 1 year would we would pay for it on the back end. That we would spend more than that to get back to where we inevitably are. I mean, if you think we don't need one, just let's go with Taiwan, or the Belt and Road Initiative, or all of the other hotspots in the country, in the world, and because it's right product, right price, right time. You get to choose two. So if we need military resources at a certain area right now, we do not get to choose the price. So if we cut that unplanned right now, we're going to spend 10x that to get back to what we made the mistake of. That being said, however, I think big difference is we can do all of it. If you want to see the government acquisitions process is rotten spaghetti. Currently, the United States Navy is the maintainer of the system that deals with contract performance. So if you want to know, hey, how do you, this contractor, do on a thing? You go to a system built by the U.S. Navy. And as a former sailor, while I love the Navy, they are not known for their software or their tools. It's almost 13 different systems for our acquisitions process. There is not a centralized government ledger. Doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So how can we think that we can just throw more money at the problem? How about we fix the core problem and do it all? Also, like I said, mentioned earlier, healthcare, it's not hard. Like, health insurance companies should not be able to benefit their end of quarter earnings by denying healthcare. You reduce that, guess what? The cost of healthcare is going to come down real quick. That's just a huge fix right there that's going to solve it. Secondly, I feel like the choice of this or that is a political shoehorn that both parties love to use because, oh, you hate kids, or, oh, you hate women, or this or that. And they're trying to put you into a bucket. And honestly, if our leaders had a creative thought, they would realize, wow, if we got a handle on our acquisition process and actually made the government like not horrendous with regards to auditing and technology and tracking, I don't know, our government tax dollars, we'd be in a different world. Also, again, it's blockchain without the crypto bro vibes exists. It would not be difficult to build a system that says, hey, Bentley, thank you so much for your tax payment this month. We've minted a coin that matches up with your tax payment. And because of that, I know that your tax dollars went to buy some wheels for a C-130. You bought some computers for a congressional office, and the rest of it went to a Social Security recipient in Northern Ohio. That technology exists. It's existed for decades. It's not hard. We just need leaders who need a creative thought, who can actually fix it and actually use these technologies, as opposed to complaining and thinking, like Mr. Beyer says, explore opportunities.
Thank you, Bentley. Let's move on to question 7.
Question 7, and we will start with Bentley, and then Kennedy and DonBot will close. the question. So the question is the following. Donald Trump received 62.98 million votes in 2016 and 74.2 million votes in 2020. Don Lemon, if you remember his name, a former CNN anchor in 2020, described Trump supporters this way. If you voted for Trump, you voted for the person who the Klan supported. You own it. You own the blood that happens. End of quote. Do you agree with this sort of sentiment? And what is your explanation for the support for Donald Trump that he has been enjoying since 2016? And again, we'll start with Bentley.
Yeah, kind of a closer issue to me. I've made no secret of hiding it, but in my early 20s, I grew up in Central Louisiana. I didn't really have a choice but to become a Republican as a kid. I didn't know any Democrats as a kid, and moved up to DC initially to work at a political fundraising firm that primarily did Republicans. And I think my views show that I in no way align with the Republican Party today. But I'm willing to bet that I'm probably one of the only federal candidates right now that has been sued by Donald J. Trump. Like I've I've dealt with them. They're not fun. It's bigly awful. And with their recourse, they're also I was a tall white guy wearing a bow tie on election night in 2012 on CN juxtaposed with Candy Crowley on election night at Romney campaign headquarters. And so I like to think I'm a Democrat who speaks Republican. And with that terminology, I'm going to use Mr. Carville, James Carville, as an example here. He says you win elections by addition, not subtraction. And it's the same thing with guns, same thing with a lot of other issues. When you demonize the other side, they shut down and they stop listening. And while you may not agree, obviously there's a lot of things the Republican Party and even the Democratic Party does that I do not agree with. I think like time here has shown that. But if you want to fix this country, the best way to do it is accept that human beings exist and not everyone's a box. Different people come from different backgrounds and maybe have a shred of empathy. So that again, we've heard these kind of statements on both sides. And while the support of Donald J. Trump is incredibly frustrating and persistent, one of the things is a large portion of this country has felt demonized and ignored for so long that you run to the radical. I mean, I'm a huge history nerd. Just read a few history books. See plenty of examples like that. So with the support he's also maintained, also everyone good and left in the Republican politics. This is a different issue, but most of the Republican good people have left. I did. A lot of my friends left. We're done with the Republican Party, and there aren't any good leaders there anymore. And because of that, and it's a lot because of Donald J. Trump. And I think overall, as a political discourse, the TLDR of it is we need to have a little bit more empathy, because you're not going to begin healing this country when you use statements like that.
Wonderful. Dave?
Thanks, Ahmed. Bentley, thanks for that response. I think there was some good insights you shared with us. I think we all have a responsibility when it comes to blood on the streets. I've said it a few times. I think we're not the compassionate society we need to be. I think it's easy to point fingers and say the blood is on your doorstep. And when we start doing that, I think it's a really slippery slope. We are such a divided country. Part of that's due to gerrymandering. Part of that's due to the political dynamics we've come to accept. But we are drawn to the extremes as opposed to the moderate middle. I won't vote for Donald J. Trump because I do think he is divisive. But we again we're geared to be, we've become programmed to be divisive. We've been programmed to choose left, right. blue, red, progressive, conservative. That's not how we're wired. And I mean, I think we need 50 to 60 moderate leaning independents at least in the US House. And I don't think Don brings that to the table. And again, I'm going to say I encourage Don to take my call to announce his retirement. And I think if it's a choice between the other three candidates, obviously I'll choose I encourage you all to vote for me because I am an independent, moderate leaning person and leading with compassion. And I think that's what we need to break the log jams.
Thank you very much. DonBot, question 7.
The suggestion that Donald Trump supporters own the blood of violence and hate is counterproductive and divisive. It's a harmful approach that doesn't address the complex issues at hand. Trump's base of support stems from his ability to tap into a deep-seated sense of economic insecurity, xenophobia, and mistrust of institutions felt by many Americans. Recognizing the concerns and anxieties of this group without accepting or condoning hate or violent behavior is crucial. We need to engage in constructive dialogue and work towards solutions that address these underlying issues, not further polarize communities. By doing so, we can begin to build bridges and work towards a more inclusive and compassionate society. As a nation, we need to focus on fostering empathy, understanding, and inclusivity, rather than resorting to divisive rhetoric that exacerbates the problem.
Thank you, DonBot. We're going to move on to the closing. We're going to start with DonBot for the closing. We'll go to Bentley, and Dave, you will wrap us up. Let's start with DonBot.
Thank you for this opportunity and for this forum. First, I want to thank the Black Alumni Alliance National Association and the True Representation Movement for giving us this remarkable forum. Dear constituents of the Virginia 8th District, I want to express my firm commitment to the well-being of our community, which is why I'm asking for your support as I seek a 6th term in the House. It's not just about me, it's about the importance of having a dedicated champion who will continue to fight for our values, our environment, and our collective prosperity. I ask that you join me on this continued journey as we strive for progress, for innovation, and for a more inclusive and compassionate society. Together, we can achieve great things and make a lasting difference in the lives of those who call our district home. Thank you for your consideration, and let's build a better future for all of us.
Thank you, DonBot. Next up, Bentley.
Awesome. Thank you for your time tonight, and thank you to the Black Alumni Alliance Association and the True Representation Movement for hosting this debate. At the heart of my campaign is the belief that government can and should work for the people efficiently, transparently, and fairly. I'm running for Congress because I've seen firsthand how outdated systems hold us back, and I know we can do better. Whether it's modernizing healthcare, addressing the climate crisis, or protecting our data privacy, I believe bold, practical solutions are within reach. The future we build depends on the choices we make today. I know taking a chance on someone outside the political mold is a risk, but staying stuck in the same old ways is an even bigger one. I'm ready to fight for the future we deserve with honesty, transparency, and determination to make real change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bentley. And lastly, but certainly not least, David Kennedy.
Thanks, Dash. Well, yes, thank you to the Black Alumni Alliance, the True Representation Movement. Thank you, Bentley, for joining. I know Jerry couldn't join today. He's been a great guy to get to meet and get to know at different venues. DonBot, shaky performance at time, but I actually really appreciated your last comment on the how we approach, because I think we're on the same page. We need to work towards a compassionate society. So last year I graduated from Wesley Theological Seminary, and deciding on my next steps in life, pastor or run for Congress. Well, I decided I'm going to run for Congress. And my foundation since day one has been love neighbor, the great biblical call, respect differences, treating someone the way you want to be treated, but challenge bullies anytime someone is being marginalized. I'm a uniter, a bridge builder, and I'll always fight for the one being bullied or the one feeling forgotten. My platform's about bread and butter quality of life issues like affordable housing, a living wage, affordable child care, safe streets and opportunities for youth, a woman's right to choose, caring for our veterans, and caring for anyone who's struggling with mental illness, addictions, and anyone who would fall into the category of most vulnerable. I will be an ever-present, invisible representative. I'll do regular town halls. I'll listen closely and be a we the people representative and one who lives fully into the vision of our Constitution of the United States. Please consider me when you vote on election day or early voting. Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you everyone for joining us. We have come to the end of this debate. So thank you to all of our candidates and our participants tonight. This has truly been an engaging, informative debate, and we appreciate the time that each one of you has taken out to share your perspectives with the voters. And before we close, we want to remind you, our viewers, of the importance of independent research. All right. So while the AI today has done its best to represent Congressman Beyer's positions based on available public records, it is critical that voters carefully review the policies and platforms of all of their candidates before making their decisions in the voting booths. The stakes are now, as they have always been, very high. As this debate has shown, the challenges we face are significant, and every vote counts in determining the future of our community and our country. Thank you again for tuning in, and be sure to exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. We are less than a month away, we're about a few weeks away, so make sure you go vote, stay informed, stay engaged, stay involved, and also stay safe. Thank you so much and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.